Welcome to the Democratic Model, the official podcast of the Model DNC. We explore bills, have guests on occasionally, and have a good time. And we hope you do too. Today I am joined by... Introduce yourself, friends.
I am AC3 Rep Upsilodon.
And I'm Sam.
And we have many things supposedly we're going to talk about today. Shall we start then?
Let's start with the rules for both the House and the Senate.
Well, the Senate rules are an absolute cock, right? I mean, because I know for a fact DNC said don't vote for them, right? Because we have that stupid filibustering rule in there.
Yeah, the filibuster rule is definitely going to be something that's going to be heavily debated over the next couple of days or so. I mean, in the House, it's already been pretty much, vetoed and taken out. So it's not as much an issue here, but I can see how it would cripple the Senate in a sense.
Yes. So I'm looking at it right now. The biggest thing that I see is that 2/3 of the sitting senators, you're never going to get 2/3 of the vote, like ever.
That really seems like the case because we have the Socialist Party as a single seat, and we have our coalition with the Blue Moose Party, which barely even makes up like a good third. And even then, the Republican Senate only makes up like 6 seats. So so a majority would be hard to achieve in any sense of the word unless a new coalition would were to be dealt with like the Blue Moose and the Republicans, which probably won't be for the foreseeable future. It's a very chaotic system, I'd say.
Yeah. And thankfully the the head federal clerk Wendell decided to rule him out of order in the House, which was absolutely amazing. Now, do you know why Wendell ruled the House filibuster amendment out of order?
Well, I can understand the House filibuster amendment being ruled out of order, but I don't understand why he didn't do it for both the House and the Senate. It doesn't make sense to do it for one but not for both, at least not to me at least.
I think the House filibuster rule for the Senate was already in the rules when it was submitted to floor, which is why it couldn't be ruled out of order.
Uh, the whole filibuster thing doesn't really make sense in this type of simulation. We had that embarrassing issue with the filibuster last term, so I don't know why anyone would want to like replicate that or have anything similar happen like with that happen again.
I think they are honestly trying to replicate that issue where they're trying to like block legislation by simply just waiting it out using these types of, dirty tactics. It's this thing we've definitely seen before, and I think they're trying to pull it again.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the Death Penalty Reform Act of 2019. That is number 2, Senate 250. So specifically, that is basically reducing the crimes which can be sentenced to the death penalty. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Samantha, why don't you go first?
I personally think that the bill is a bit of a head scratcher. While in some areas it lessened the capabilities of judges to be using the death penalty, it just really didn't do anything that was that effective to abolishing it, and it really didn't achieve anything for either side. It really was a confusing bill.
And I really feel like there's a clear division, especially regarding the debate. Like some people think it's a massive reduction, others think it's like a massive expansion. It's a strange concept, and I fail to see how such a bill in its current state would pass in any branch of the government. To be honest, I mean, it's Congress.
Um, I know for a fact that the Vice President Hurricane came out in support of the bill. What do you guys think about that? Is that something that he should have done? Should he have held off against that? What do you think?
I I can understand the need for solidarity, especially when we have a split Senate. But like I said, this bill is just a head scratcher. So I don't know why he would come out in support of this bill in particular.
I think it was more of an attempt to like try to clear the confusion and to assure people that yes, there is support for this, and yes, this is a thing people want to see, especially from someone as reputable as a vice president. Like he can't really deny that. But the problem is that it's so confusing that people might just recognize that as sort of null and void and simply go on reviewing it. It's honestly baffling to me why he would choose to support something like this rather than something that is less confusing, is more, I guess, unifying would be a good term.
I'm looking at what he said, and it doesn't look like he actually supports the bill like you stated. It looks like he's saying that it's an absurd to try and bring back the death penalty. Do I have his comment confused with someone else?
You may. Uh, here's the thing. I'm looking at the bill right now. Uh, Section B, subsection 2. It says the new way to do it is by beheading with the guillotine. Executions to be done by guillotine. Are we back in France? Medieval times? I mean, what is this? We're not. Why? This makes no sense about it.
Well, I do agree that such a punishment is quite barbaric. It's it's also sort of representative of how backwards we still are, and how divisive our nation is still is that such a thing it is still like has that such a cruel and unusual thing has still been brought up in our very Congress, in the highest echelons of our government, that this is still a thing we are debating.
Well, yes, that is certainly a concern that a lot of us have. And I mean, a Democrat is the one who wrote this. Dewey Cheatham, right?
I believe he's a socialist now.
He's marked. I mean, he may be now, but I believe he is marked as a Democrat for the time being. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me look at this, because I know for a fact it'll say somewhere beyond.
Yeah, I just checked their lobby. He is.
Yes, he is. Okay. Uh, cool. So then let's move on to the third bill we're going to talk about today, the resolution reform census. That may be one of the most controversial bills that we have going for this thing right now, because of what happened last session. If you remember, we had, I think it was 4 census resolutions come up, and the speaker at the time, Guns, delayed them, so delayed all the GOP ones and rushed the Democratic one. That I believe that was probably
Some of them regarded unfortunate incidents with like a bazooka or something, correct? That was a thing.
yeah, Present Sale and PGF both brought weapons into the House floor, which is a crime against the it's a crime in regards to the Capitol rules. So this bill makes it so that census get rushed to the front. What do you guys think about that? Let's start with Samantha again. Are you there, Sam? Samantha?
He's she's he said I could go
Sure,
first.
go
I
ahead.
think
You can go first. So yeah, go ahead.
this is baffling because there is there is untapped opportunity here for destructive measures. You you could easily censure a whole bunch of representatives for the simplest amount of things and block any sort of controversial or sort of disliked legislation. There is basically this has the opportunity to severely slow down our legislative process, which is not something we need right now, in my personal opinion.
I know for a fact that we have an amendment going through in GOII right now, which would require anybody who wishes to censor another representative to either pass it through the House Committee on Rules or get 2/5 of the representatives to sign on to it. What do you think about
See,
that?
the issue with the previous censures were that for many of them, by the time they had come to the vote in the House, damage had already been fully done. It had already been forgiven. People had already moved on. And while I doubt this would accelerate the process, it's certainly a way to streamline it so that such strange incident wouldn't happen again, I suppose.
Alrighty, Samantha, what are your thoughts?
I think that if everything you need to know about the bill is located at where the sponsors are, the amount of Republicans who are sponsoring this bill should just worry everyone alone. And with a Republican Congress, which is likely going to happen in the next federals, I don't think it's a good idea.
I agree, but I know there are several Democrats, including myself, who have also signed on to sponsor that bill. It does truly seem like a bipartisan issue, and especially when the GOP was the one who was most affected by census uh, last session. Um, so what do you think about the amendment that's running through about the 2/5 or the Rules Committee?
It's certainly a good idea to potentially reduce abuse, although I think there could possibly be smoother ways of doing it. There, for now, this seems to be the best possible option, although there are certainly better ones, I guess.
Alrighty. Alrighty then, let's move on to the fourth and final bill that we will be talking about today, the House Resolution 327, the Paid Family and Medical Leave Act. This bill will require employers to pay 80% of the average weekly wages for all workers for the duration of their medical and maternity leave. I will note that the United States is the only developed country which does not have mandatory paid medical and or maternal leave. Upsilodon, let's get your thoughts on that first.
The most obvious thing that jumps out to me upon first reading is the fact that it's written by Republicans, since paid leave is usually sort of the generally more liberal, I suppose, measure, or sort of something that you would see a Democrat supporting more than anything. It's sort of surprising, but at the same time, you sort of need that bipartisan measure to get these sort of bills passed to protect families.
What I'm surprised about though is the fact that he doesn't have anybody signed on as a co-sponsor, either Republican, Democrat, or Bull Moose. So maybe this is a sign that people do not find it particularly like helpful at all. Maybe they want the Section 4B employees may not claim more than $1,000 per week. For some people, 52,000 I mean 30 $52,000 a year is not a livable wage, especially if you have a family to feed, right? Uh, what do you think about that?
Um, if I can interject, I wouldn't classify Ranger Aragorn as a Republican. When I joined the Sim, he was in the Christian Union, and he's in the Model Democrat server. He's hardly a Republican for most of his policies. I think he's just in there to LARP. Um, I think that the bill is obviously very long overdue, and that it's like you stated, we're the only developed country that doesn't have anything like this. So it's a no-brainer for this bill to pass.
I, I echo the thoughts of my fellow comrades here, and I believe that it's sort of strange that people are so hung up on taxes that they don't consider like deeply human aspect of it, and that families for the first time can get together and aren't burdened by such hard labor. And this is sort of a step in the right direction, I feel, and it's sad that there's such fierce opposition to it.
Okay, I'm gonna interject.
See it
Go
further.
look at the starboard, like now. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I saw
So
it.
he decided the League of Virgins annual meeting, and then it's just a picture of us recording. Isn't that just wonderful? That is llama for you.
Well, that's
Alrighty.
llama for you.
Let us move on then to the main thing that is going on this week, which is what's happening in the Senate in regards to Social Security. For those of you who don't know, the GOP cucks want guilty air to raise the Social Security age to 70, 5 years beyond what it is right now, and until he either comes to a compromise or adheres to their demands, they've completely locked up everything in Congress. They're not going to move any of the presidential nominees for any of the things. They're not going to um, they're not going to move any legislation from the House. They've just put Congress into a gridlock. I personally think that that's just wrong. We have many able things to do. We have many important things that need to get done, and for them to hold up Congress just because they want a stupid little thing which doesn't even make any sense. Um, it's just really, really stupid of them, and this is going to hurt them in the election next election. Up Epsilon, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, honestly, I don't really think this will hurt them in the election unless we go into like a full shutdown, lockdown mode. Then in that case, that might have good effect. But I think there's a reason they chose to do this at the start of the term rather than like late into the game, because this is their opportunity, shut down some nominees, sort of prove early on that there are forces to be reckoned with in this new I guess Congress. So this so I guess this is sort of like a power move for them early on. Although again, it doesn't really make any sense because there that raising of the retirement age is completely unethical. It's completely unadvisable. I personally don't think it's really going to pass through at all. Although whatever guilty air is going to pass is probably going to at least quell these sort of nerves or even maybe, ignite more conflict. We'll simply have to see, but for now this is sort of a strange thing for the Republicans to be doing. And I and it's kind of not good. It's not going to look good for their image if for the rest of the term if
Right,
this
but
completely fails.
I think the one thing that we need to remember is that this, I mean, although they may be trying to like get more money for the people, this will be saving the government money, mind you. But it hurts retirees in the long run because they're working longer and they're getting less money, and Republicans want to put this money towards national debt when we already have billions to put towards that because of a surplus that our president Gaultier made with his budget. Um, so Samantha, what are your thoughts?
I think that this is going to have the same adverse effect that the GOP pushing all the subpoenas in the last term did. Because the last term, when guns and present sales started to subpoena all of our cabinet members, it just pissed the BNP off. And I think it's just going to do the same thing. This is just going to solidify our coalition with the BNP, and it'll just piss off the socialists as well. So I really think that the GOP is just shooting itself in the foot with this. I mean, it's such a mild, like moving the age from 65 to 70, I believe, is just it's such a small issue to waste away any chance at a coalition and just piss away everything that they could have had for something so small just makes no sense to me. and I continue to not understand why the GOP does the things that it does. But I do understand that personally, I think it's because of their weak and ineffective leadership, especially with some of their leaders being banned currently. They're just acting like a child. It's very poor, and I don't expect much more from them at this point.
The bans completely sent the GOP into chaos. I know for a fact that Guns got removed as leader because he rigged some of the polls in the GOP, and now he's leader again because the previous leader got kicked out because of the ban. And this has sent the GOP into like political chaos. I mean, this is probably one of the reasons why they didn't get a coalition together with the BNP and why we got it instead. So, what do you guys think is going to happen now with all of that?
I'm honestly uncertain as to, because right now their trajectory is completely off. They have weak leadership. Their their attempt at trying to hold up the government looks like it's going to be a failure on all accounts due to our coalition's immense majority, and the fact that this has sort of been criticized on all aspects. So this is honestly, I think their decision making might not necessarily doom the party, but it'll definitely have severe consequences for them in the very near future.
Samantha? I think Samantha's having some connectivity problems, so I think we will call it there. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Democratic Model. All views expressed in this podcast are the contributors' own and do not reflect the views of the DNC. Join us next time. And until then, goodbye.